Thank you for downloading this RealAgriculture podcast. Excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more at excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca.
Okay, we are joined right now by Edenwold's own of Saskatchewan, a farmer from that area. It is Alanna Koch. Hey, Alanna, how's it going?
Great, Sean. Nice to see you on Canada's Ag Day.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to see you too. Okay, you just did a panel. You're like fresh off the stage. They basically like grabbed you and ushered you into this room so we could have this conversation. Now, you moderate. I've moderated a lot of panels. You had some heavy industry hitters. The panel name was Canada's Moonshot. Now, before we get into what the panelists said, what exactly are we talking about here? What is Canada's Moonshot allegedly?
Well, basically, we were saying that Canada's moonshot is about the opportunity that comes out of sustainability and the fact that Canada is a leader in agricultural sustainability. So, how is that a key driver for Canada? How is it our moonshot? What are we going to do to take us even further regarding ag sustainability because of what we've already accomplished and what more can we do?
As a farmer, how do we connect return on investment to that? Right? Because a lot of people get trapped in this ideological, like, hey, our moonshot is here, we're gonna, save the planet. But there's an economic reality here. So how does for you as a farmer, how does that play into it?
Well, this is exactly what, I was hoping to hear today. We did talk about it. This is a challenge for farmers. We're told, do better, invest more, be sure to innovate, quickly adopt. And lots of times people aren't thinking about, but is that profitable? Does that work for your business? And some of it becomes sort of a little prescriptive. We want you to do this, this, and this, but you don't get a premium for that. So I think that's the challenge for us as farmers. We know we're constantly investing, constantly innovating. The return has to come from the market, and it can't be based on some artificial framework. So it has to make sense. I think it has made sense, but let's not bury us in costs. Let's make sure we incentivize the right behaviors and give us the premium if we are better than others. And I think in many cases we are better than the rest of the world. So where's the premium in that? For
Yeah.
sure, it is about market access, though, Sean. I think that's something we need to remember. It keeps us in markets. That's pretty important for me as a farmer to think about. When I think about Canada being the world's fifth largest agri-food exporter, market access is huge. I think our sustainable measures help keep us in markets and help us grow markets.
Yeah, I should have mentioned at the beginning that you are the board chair for the Global Institute for Food Security as well. Now, your panelists, we've got Michael McCain, executive chair for Maple Leaf Foods, got Ken Seitz, who is president and CEO of Nutrien, and you had John Stackhouse, senior VP, Office of the CEO at the Royal Bank of Canada. So I guess summarize for us, what did the panelists have to say about this? You just told us your perspective as a farmer. What did the panelists have to say?
Well, what we talked about at the panel, and you look, we had a big part of the value chain up on the stage at the same time. Some real powerhouse speakers, obviously, but each brought their own perspective on, what is the challenge of sustainability, what's the opportunity, and then they also talked collectively about how they're all members of CANZA, which is the Canadian Alliance for Net Zero emissions agriculture, and it's just launched last fall. So they talked about their role in that and how they think it's really about piloting sustainability and what falls out of the value of our sustainable practices in Canada, and kind of early stages of that. But they all reflected on that, how they think it's been a successful launch. They have much more work to do on measurement and deciding what success looks like, for sure.
Yeah. I have to think that a lot of the audience, farmers and ranchers that are listening to the program, they don't get sort of like itchy. I don't know what the reaction is, but they get concerned. I hear about it from the audience. When we talk about sustainability initiatives, we hear a lot of like, this needs to be farmer led and not left totally in the hands of industry. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I always say not about farmers without farmers, and Ken Seitz was really realistic about that today from Nutrien. He said, hey, we can come in and we can say, here's the practices we want, and here's the inputs that we can help you provide, and here's what food companies and consumers are looking for. But he said, if it doesn't make sense for the farmer and we can't explain it to the farmer and the farmer doesn't see value in it, none of it matters. So, I think he was very realistic today on the panel. And that's, I think, what makes us nervous as farmers is don't come in and tell us how to do our business. Tell us, what are the needs of the market? We'll get to where we need to because agriculture is so diverse across the country. Even operation to operation within, my province is different.
Yeah.
And so it can't be prescriptive. There has to be, regional understanding of what works in one place isn't necessarily going to work in the other. What works in one sector isn't going to work, in another. So that, kind of understanding that it's got to be the practices that make sense, that are practically, possible. And yes, good environmental sustainable outcomes, but then we also think about economic outcomes that have to be sustainable, as well as social sustainability, which comes with communities because we have a lot of farmers in the area that help, keep those communities alive. It all goes together. It's not just an environmental lens, right?
It's definitely a complex puzzle. Do you now you worked in government, so you understand it. Because of the variability that we have and trying to recognize some of those regional differences, even inside the province, right? So irrigated land around Outlook different than, maybe a ranch down in East End, or, we could come up with lots of examples. Do you think that that's one of the challenges is trying to sell all this to the consumer in trying to talk about what we're doing? Because there is a lot of differences. It's not just like the industry is doing this. We can just plant a flag and really make it simplistic. It's trouble to get, it can be a struggle when we have to explain nuances. And we have a lot of nuance in our industry.
That's true. I mean, the challenge is there is lots of differences. Every sector has its own kind of unique qualities. But I think what's fundamental for all of us, Sean, is, I know maybe it feels overused to say we have to tell our story, but really that's what we have to continue to do is, be transparent, talk about our operations, how I have the same interests as consumers do. I care about the environment. I care about, food safety, nutritious food. I care about my communities the same way as the consumer does. So I invite them in. I talk about my operation, why I do what I do, how I'm going to do better. And man, if the conversation doesn't begin there, then there's no conversation at all. So it doesn't matter what we're farming, where we're farming. We've got to be able to tell our story, to anybody and to all who will listen. And I think that's the only way we're going to kind of have those shared interests and be able to maintain public trust and continue to build on that.
Now, all three of the panelists connected to very large organizations, publicly traded. Did any of them talk about the influence that, a Bay Street or a Wall Street has on what their companies are doing in the area of sustainability?
Interesting because I asked several questions as the moderator to these powerhouse panelists about sustainability. What's the driver? What are you excited about? What do you think is next? What's the measure of success? What's the call to action? None of them talked about their shareholders. None of them talked about kind of what we think we're hearing coming out of Wall Street. I mean, part of that is, maybe this wasn't the audience to tell that story, but part of it is, I'm not sure that maybe is as front of mind as it might have been even just a year to 18 months ago. I feel like maybe that's sliding a little way. I'm not being unrealistic. I know that's still a pressure for them, but I feel like there's other drivers in place here that, we've got to do the right thing. There has to be value in doing the right thing. How do we make sure everybody benefits along the value chain? I think they all get it, that farmers have pushed back enough to say to the bank and to the Nutriens and to the food companies, hey, don't come in and tell me how to farm. Hey, as farmers, I know my operation best, but as farmers, we also need to know we can't keep everything the way it is, proud of what we've already accomplished. And then how are we going to do better and better? Right.
Yeah,
I think that's about.
Yeah. And like you said, market access is, dictates some of this too, right? We've seen this with European canola. We're going to have more and more examples, I think, going forward for sure.
Right. Yeah. And I guess the other thing I'd say is, the other thing that we talked a lot about today, and I mean, this is near and dear to my heart as a farmer and as chair of the Global Institute for Food Security, is innovation is key So what Ken Seitz talked a lot about is, people ask him all the time, well, are farmers willing to change? Are they willing to adopt new technology? And he said, are you kidding me? Like, farmers only need a small signal, and they will invest, and they will quickly adopt new technology, and they are about innovation. So that's pretty exciting to think about. I mean, and that's why we are the most sustainable producers of food in the world, is because we've been willing to invest and innovate. And, that's a forever opportunity for us.
Yeah, well put. Well, Alanna, thanks for joining us here today on Canada's Ag Day. Enjoy the celebration there in Ottawa, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Sean.